because honestly, he was that good and really respected. He's very serious, very intense. But I honestly, when I looked at that team and that structure and that shape on Saturday against City, I thought, okay, Steve Holland's got them.
2026 has started in such a hectic fashion that really it was almost glossed over in a day that the entire first team coaching setup had changed once Michael Carrick came in. So I wanted to get some expert opinion on what we're hearing so far about their work and what it might mean for the long term. For me, during Ruben Amorim's reign, even though I was, I make no secret of the fact that I was behind what he was attempting to engineer in the long term. I often wondered. I asked the club. If there were ever any plans to kind of bolster his coaching setup with a name, with an established presence, because if you go back a year or two to Erik ten Hag's time, there was a lot of change, there was a lot of fluidity about the coaching setup. Ruud van Nistelrooy came in, René Hacker came in, and both had been first team managers, so it brought a lot of presence to the setup. So when things weren't going smoothly for Ruben, I wondered if there was some mileage in someone with more expertise coming in. Nothing ever happened, and obviously the reign is now over. So I asked the Athletics' Laurie Whitwell what he was hearing about the changeover from old staff to new, and what the early signs are in the early days of this new team.
Yeah, I think that the coaching setup is an interesting point because certainly people felt that Ruben Amorim, as head coach, had huge charisma, big qualities, but his coaching staff were obviously very young and 10 years younger than him. They've been with him since Casapia in terms of Carlos Fernandez and Adelio Candido. Were they robust enough to push back? Were they sort of challenging him, which is really what you want from an assistant, I would say. Yeah, you don't want to have disagreements every day and fall out, but certainly look back through Sir Alex Ferguson's assistants and he changed it up, didn't he? He kind of freshened things and each of those people had their own minds and even they, maybe they clashed with players at times. Certainly Carlos Queiroz did, but ultimately he was there when United were able to win the European Cup. So yeah, I think there's a skill to picking your backroom team, and I do think that was something that United looked at early on, and you can maybe question whether it was the right thing then to allow Ruben Amorim to come in with that many staff, six I think it was in the end. And so yeah, as we now look to Michael Carrick, he's obviously had a bit of a blend really of people that he's worked with before in Jonathan Woodgate, Johnny Evans, obviously who he knows, but also as that United history, but recent United history as well. So he knows these players that are in the building right now. And then Steve Holland, who's obviously got a wealth of experience with Chelsea and with England. So somebody who I think maybe is a suggestion from the club to Michael Carrick, and Michael Carrick's certainly gone along with it and bought into it. And I guess you can see straight away the tactical sort of decisions that are being made, in one game. I know it's a small sample, but there seems to be that kind of thinking about what the team needs to do to beat the opponents right in front of them and adapt really. Clearly, yeah, the coaching staff under Carrick has, still needs to, I guess, prove itself, to be honest. But I do wonder, I hear that the sessions are, sharp, intense. I think under Ruben Amorim, there was a lot of sort of walking through of drills because he wanted them to understand his back three system, back five system, and that sort of took a lot of time to kind of go through at a fairly sort of sedate pace, I suppose. But yeah, it's a different vibe now, and you can hear from Lisandro Martinez, can't you, in terms of him talking about the change that Carrick has brought, and let's see if it can actually sustain until the end of the season.
There's a lot of sense to the new names that came in. Jonathan Woodgate obviously had years of service with Michael Carrick, so that made total sense for him to come in. There's already the relationship there. Travis Binion was already inside the club. He's a great link to the academy, which is hugely important, of course. Craig Mawson has been around the club for years. Johnny Evans, while obviously fresh to the role, crucially, he doesn't have to prove anything to any of those players, and he can be a bridge between the dressing room and authority, sort of a double agent, as it were. The one that caught me off guard, and I think a lot of other people as well, was Steve Holland. No stranger to managerial changes and success coexisting at Chelsea. He won the Champions League. He was there when he won 2 Premier Leagues and more honours besides. He's worked with some of the greats. He's worked with Jose Mourinho, like Michael Carrick, Antonio Conte, very highly rated, of course, Gus Hiddink. And of course, he was a major part of England's emergence into a top tournament team with Gareth Southgate. So just to get a bit more insight on him, even though he's been around these high profile successes. He's quite a low profile character, so I got in touch with the Daily Mirror's John Cross for his insight on Steve Holland and what his appointment could mean in the longer term as well.
Well, he really interests me in sort of through working with England. I think people within the game really talk about him being a very organised coach, sets teams up well, and really doesn't like the limelight particularly. I mean, he did have a recent job, didn't he, overseas, but generally has been a number two, the occasional interim. Doesn't like the spotlight at all. He's happy to be in the background, and he's just not someone that sort of kind of courts the attention really. But I thought he was a super shrewd appointment because he's just so well organised, respected by players. People talk about him coming alive on the training pitch with his methods, and works so well with Gareth Southgate. Now, obviously, England was all about Southgate, but Southgate would definitely say this is a partnership, me and Steve, because honestly, he was that good and really respected. He's very serious, very intense. But I honestly, when I looked at that team and that structure and that shape on Saturday against City, I thought, okay, Steve Holland's got them, basically. And I think that what he brings to Michael Carrick's team is a real stellar opportunity and stellar appointment and a gravitas that basically gives weight to a young manager like Michael Carrick, who can then turn around and say, okay, I might be inexperienced, relatively so, on this front. The parallels, obviously, with Southgate and Middlesbrough and what have you, but equally, I've got experience in my setup. And that's what I really liked about it. And that's why I think it gives Carrick a genuine chance to move forward. I listened to the kind of the co-coms at the weekend with Gary Neville saying, oh, let's not get giddy and carried away. I think United fans should be giddy and excited, actually. But I agree with not getting carried away because it is one result. And I also think that basically it was a bit bonkers to see some people say, oh, give him the job and stuff. It's too early for that. But I tell you what, longer term, in the kind of the next 3-4 months, I think Holland gives Carrick a real chance. I think he's that good. He's a super shrewd appointment, and basically, I really, really thought, wow, okay, that is making a statement from the manager saying, I believe I can be long-term manager at Manchester United, and I think that's what gives Carrick a chance. So I think that basically, in a way, I think that United should go for experience and kind of stellar name. But if they do go down the Carrick route, I do think that Steve Holland presents a different outlook and mindset to maybe what happened under Solskjaer, because he can, from a football perspective, Steve Holland is as good as there is in English football.